But I really love your take on it. This is what I love about art. I mean, different people will look at the same thing and make different conclusions, and I think those all matter.
Well, hello, my name is Janaea Robison. I'm the artistic director for the National Lutheran Choir, and I'm so thrilled to have with us today Tamila Amanzholova, our graphic designer and artist who we collaborated with, who she came up with the concept for this year's season. Artistically, the artwork that you see on the website and that you see in our print materials.
My name is Tamila. I was born and raised in Kazakhstan, and when I graduated high school, well, I really liked art and I like to draw like on everything and everywhere. And I decided that I wanted to do something art related. So my mom suggested I try graphic design. So eventually I made it to Houston. I was kind of all over the place before that. Made it to Houston, graduated with graphic design degree. It taught me a lot of very diverse skills.
I first saw your work in early 2023 when I was contracted to do a festival for the Houston Chamber Choir. And they gave me this beautiful brochure, and inside of it had this artwork for their season, which was extraordinary. The style is so fresh and bright. I don't know, it feels almost like Andy Warhol kind of pop art, which I like. It looks just new and fresh. When I started at National Lutheran Choir, I asked our staff, we should reach out to Houston Chamber Choir to see who was their graphic designer and their artist to come up with this. We actually used you last year too, in our 23-24 season, All Things New.
Previously, when I've done this type of work, there is no concrete idea for a style or for what people want. So usually the first round of work is just defining the style. Maybe it's illustration and pencil-like drawings, or maybe it's a collage, or maybe it's all digital. But this season, they actually did have an idea and they gave me a lot of really helpful references. The very first iteration is usually just kind of bare bones. And then I start adding textures and colors and making them all different enough, but also having them have the same overarching theme. For this season, we went with a collage concept. Mm-hmm. And because the central element of a collage is usually a photo, I would say half of the time was spent just finding the right photo and testing them all together in a composition. The first one, for All Saints, also had a suggestion for a concept of uniting a nature arch from a national park and arches the way we see them in cathedrals and churches. Yeah. And I loved that idea. Eventually I found the two things that worked really well together.
This is from the Arches National Park, I assume, in Utah. But then, and that's immediately what I see, but then that I see that you've combined it with a church arch, and it's so seamlessly tucked in there that you don't even really notice that that's actually not part of the natural world.
For a lot of these, I had to do a lot of research and a lot of finding the right imagery.
This image of a person going through that, well, it looks like they're looking at, and you assume that they're going to walk through the arch. Is that sort of what you were thinking, this concept of getting to the other side?
Actually, that didn't come to my mind. I wanted to have a juxtaposition of a person being smaller and sort of to show this grandeur of nature and faith kind of compared to it. But I really love your take on it. This is what I love about art. I mean, different people will look at the same thing and make different conclusions, and I think those all matter.
My musical theme is that the nature imagery is an allegory, and so you were able to capture it perfectly.
I'm so glad.
The Christmas festival, the first image that you sent us was a tree.
I used this sort of tree because I really liked how the branches went outside of this frame and kind of created a nice flow. A lot of design is about leading the viewer's eye. So
Right.
I really was drawn to this shape. But when I presented it, it turns out that it was very similar to an album cover that was already existing. So ended up switching it to a thicker, bigger tree.
I think there was a certain point at which we said, what if we have some sort of human imagery embedded in the story for every picture? And that this one, the mother and the child, it's so subtle that if you could look at it and not even notice that she's there. She looks like she's part of the tree. She and the baby are part of the tree.
Yeah, which really brings the idea of like unity of people and nature.
If you look closely too, you've incorporated on every single image for each project, there's actually music in there too.
Yes. So that actually came from a need to have some sort of texture, because when you make a digital collage, sometimes it can turn out too smooth and too digital. And I really like having textures to ground things. So I added it to one of the works, and I think the staff really liked that. And they said, hey, can we have that everywhere? And I said, yes. Can you give me the exact music sheets that are used for this?
Yeah.
And they found it. And then I did a little bit of Photoshop magic on it and kind of, I didn't exactly paste it. I used a few effects and had like a little mask over it. So it's inside of a shape. And then I applied it in different places and different colors on every work. Yeah.
I think it should be we should have a contest to see who can figure out what every single piece is.
Right? Like like most people probably won't notice exactly what it is. So there's people who will. I think is just a neat little like thing to put in for them and something that adds meaning to the work.
This is the one that we get a picture of our community. So we have pictures of our audience NLC community and also a picture of our singers. The story of this whole project for the tune-up is to explore Black sacred music. And so to have these images, it does capture all of that. You see community, you see the joining of hands.
Really, the idea of hands was there from the beginning. Mm-hmm. I did a lot of searching of like the right hands and something that kind of the right angles, the right, composition. And then I combined it with this watercolor splash in the background. And this is actually where I first brought in the music sheet idea, because the watercolor splash was a little sad and alone on its own, and I wanted there to be something else, a texture. And then I added a bit of like different color filters because original was black and white, and it was getting a little dark overall, so I wanted to brighten the composition. Color has so much significance in culture and in different cultures too. So I try to go by, well, first of all, what's the goal and what's the purpose and sort of what the music is about. If it's meant to be calming and peaceful, I'm probably not going to use like reds and oranges. And if it's about nature, there'll probably be some greens and blues. And as to what colors work together, by now I know already. Like I've done, I work with color a lot, and you've seen my work is usually pretty colorful. Right. So through trial and error, I figured out what works. That was actually, I think, one of the toughest one to do, because when you start searching images about like healing and body, all you find is like older people doing yoga on the beach.
Right.
So, and sometimes it's a little too into health, like it's clearly made for like a hospital brochure or something. So I wanted to find something that didn't quite feel too medical, but also like had something to do with like meditation. I settled on this image of a woman in the field and kind of in the nature. Yeah. And I added other elements to it that really spoke to the idea of health.
So there's 3 green circles on the right side. These are leaves, aren't they?
Yeah, it's the zoom in on leaves. I thought about our blood vessels and kind of how complex our bodies are. And that sort of led me to think about leaves and how there's a lot of similarities in like how nature is built and how we are built.
This is a tough one. This concert is a really heavy subject. We want to have people I feel that this is a concert that is centered more on hope, or at least we start there, we end there, and there is grief in the middle of it.
Some of the previous choir concerts I've done also had the same topic, so I know how complex it can be. I wanted to really focus on hope, and this one also went through a lot of changes. My very first version had a young family. It's like a mom and dad and a kid, and some field flowers, because I think like field flowers represent perseverance. But then we started shifting away from it. So I had another version of family, but it was multiple generations. It was like a grandma with children, and it was starting to get in the right direction. And then we finally decided to make it more about children and like children in school. So that was the final image I chose. But throughout the process of it, I was really thinking about growth and generations. And this is also where I pulled in the imagery of birds. I think they represent freedom and also a collective that sticks together. And they move from place to place. I think it's really beautiful.
Yeah, it's extraordinary. Do you do this kind of work for a lot of different performing arts organizations? I mean, I know Houston Chamber Choir, but...
My full-time job is much more like commercial marketing design. So when I do get to work with like music organizations or any kind of arts nonprofits, it's so exciting because there is this artist to artist like understanding.
There's more than just, let me just layer some different colors on top of each other. There's real intentional thought behind what you're doing.
It should be function first, as long as it delivers the right message. Right. You know, it tells the viewer what the concert is going to be about and it conveys the right feeling. As long as it does that, and then I think the pretty colors and shapes, that comes second, and that enhances it.
It's fantastic to just look at something and go, that's exactly what I want the music to sound like.
That makes me so happy. Yeah, and I'm really excited that so many like music organizations, classical music, choir, are sort of pivoting towards like more exciting and bright visuals. I think that's a great step towards like attracting new audience and attracting younger audience. So when a client is on board with any idea I throw in there, like you guys are, it's really fun. Makes for a really great work process.
So Tamila, if people are interested in being able to see more of what you do or want to contact you to see if they could contract you for work with their organizations, how would they find you?
So I have a portfolio website. It's pretty simple. It's tamila.design, no last name. And that has some examples of my work, and it also has a link to my email. Feel free to email me.
We hope you enjoyed being able to listen to our conversation with Tamila, and hope to be able to see you at the concerts where you can hear the full representation of what this beautiful artwork brings to our season this year.